Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new Take Aim. As always, pumped to get a new show out to you guys, and always excited to talk with my good buddy Brian Broderick from Day 6 Gear. And Brian was just down actually hunting with one of my other very long time friends, Scotti Campbell from Top O Texas Outfitters on an Aoudad hunt. And I think there's nothing more kind of just the cream of the crop when it comes to challenging bow hunting trophy, and it's literally up there on the list of my absolute dream hunts to do with the bow and arrow. So congrats to Brian on awesome success on such a great animal, and I can't wait to do it myself. So I hope you guys enjoy this show. All right, guys, we are back, brand new Take Game, and excited as always to get a new show out, and excited to once again talk with my buddy Brian Broderick from Day 6 Gear. What's happening, Brian?
Hey, how you doing, Brandon? I'm glad that you're one of the few podcast hosts that actually gets our name right.
Which
Everybody
one?
calls it 6 Arrows. It's Day 6 Gear.
Day 6 Gear, that's right.
That's
So,
it.
but well, let's start with that real quick, Brian. What's going on with Day 6 Gear and anything new coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, we're selling the absolute crap out of arrows, and just overwhelmed and blessed and happy to be doing it. And we're finishing up our broadheads and going to be releasing those May 1st. And been running some test heads through a few critters here and there, and super excited about getting them out there.
Can you explain a little bit, Brian, of what kind of broadheads they are?
Yeah, it's a 2-blade with a bleeder. It's basically the culmination or hybridization of Aaron Snyder and I's favorite 3 heads that we've shot over the years, and we've just kind of took the best attributes of what we liked of each one, and then took the negatives away from what we didn't like about them, and just kind of used that as a base to start a design. And then, we had some target sizes and target weight, all while maintaining solid blades and not having any vented blades, so they'll be really quiet. And that's it. I mean, that's kind of, what we did and used as a starting point to kind of get where we are.
I gotcha. So offhand, Brian, what are you going to have available as far as grains go? So I would assume you're going to have like a standard 125, or are you going to have 100 as well?
Yep, we are. That was the challenge, was the 100.
I figured.
But we got it worked out. So we just had to incorporate, titanium ferrules and things like that, which is super expensive, unfortunately. But, you can't let an obstacle stop you from what you want, what people want. So we've got a head that is 1.16 wide, and it's going to be available in 100 grain solid and 125 solid, and they both have bleeders. They're virtually identical other than the material that we use for the ferrule. They're going to be interchangeable blade, so you can change the main blade out very easily in the field. Not everyone is astute at sharpening blades, and certainly not out on a hunt, so we wanted to make it really easy where, if a guy was on a backpack hunt or even, any kind of hunt and took some shots and wanted to change the blade out, he could just have some extra blades to do that. And then we're going up a little bit in size to a head that I really wanted, which is 1.25 inches wide blade, main blade, and it'll be a 125 and a 150. And then we got a big old honking trad head that Aaron wants. So, and it'll be, I believe, 200 and 250,
Wow.
all solid. So, it's been pretty challenging, getting these heads made. I didn't realize how difficult it would be, but, we've worked through it and got what we wanted, didn't settle for anything. And that would have made it the easy path if we would have settled for certain, readily available materials and blade designs and things like that. But we knew that if we didn't do exactly what we wanted, we wouldn't be happy, and I just wasn't going to do it unless I could get exactly what I wanted. If I couldn't make a kind of a pretty significant difference, an improvement it just wasn't worth doing to me. So we just kind of pushed and stuck to our guns and finally got it,
Yeah, I would assume with multiple heads and when you're changing the weights of those heads, it's got to change that design on that head, so to speak, to make all these parts work. So
it does. It's a total math thing. You get a head design perfect for the 100, and then you change the ferrule to stainless, and it throws all the weights off. So then you've got to go back and adjust the first one, change the blade size, then come back, adjust again. It's just kind of a pain in the butt, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure, I bet. The head itself, Brian, if you can talk about it before it's out yet, but is the bleeder blades part of the head, is it a solid piece, or are those like something we can change in and out?
No, you can change the bleeder as well. So when you buy replacement blade packs for these heads, it'll come with a replacement main blade and a replacement bleeder. You can change them all out at one time.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds very interesting. Yeah, very cool. Well, I assume that you guys just use these heads or prototypes of the head, and you guys had punched a couple Audads in Texas Panhandle a couple weeks ago, and I was really excited to talk with you about that today and kind of both things, see how the heads worked on the Aoudad and talk about the details of the Aoudad hunt, because I know personally both of us personally, we're a huge fan of Audads, and we kind of rank that Aoudad up there as one of the best and most significant animals you can kill as a bow hunter free range.
Yeah, I ran across my first Aoudad on a hunt in West Texas. Gosh, it would have been in the let's make sure I get this right, mid to late 90s maybe, and I ran across some Aoudad out there on a West Texas hunt, and man, I don't know, I was just completely smitten with them, and back then the ranchers really weren't aggressively hunting them because the herds were just kind of getting established, and they were not really wanting to get after them, and now they have just completely, they have just totally thrived in that country, and they've got a great established population now, and the country that they inhabit excuse me, is it's as rough and rugged as anything you'll ever want to hunt. It just makes it a pretty good challenge. And of course they have, they're a sheep, so they have that type of eyesight with some type of magnification in their sight. I'm not sure what, but they're tough to get up on with a bow, and they don't stand around and wait for like a second look. They're not like a deer where a deer will look back to be kind of make sure what he saw. These things just bug out. If one leaves, they all leave.
The look and they're gone. But another thing that makes it really challenging too is they're always in a group, right, Brian? Like you're looking at sometimes 15 to 30 sheep probably in a one group when you get up to glass on them or make a stalk. So you're then trying to get past 60 set of eyes that, like you said, have magnification, so it makes it just super challenging.
It does, and I learned a lot of lessons, when we were out there a few weeks ago, I tried to push the issue in the beginning a little bit and try to maybe move a little more on groups than I probably should have. But I quickly learned that it's a timing game. It's an ambush game. You've got to stay engaged with them because they can move really fast when they decide to relocate, and so you got to stay up with them and just kind of lay back and watch and see what they're doing, and then you're constantly trying to figure out how do I find a spot where I can get ahead of them and have everything in my favor, cover wind, etc., and then limit, how they're going to spread out to where you can kind of concentrate them inside of bow range. So what I started doing was just kind of sitting back on them and watching, and then once I, saw them get into a point to where I thought they were heading into an area that would provide a good ambush scenario, we would wait for them to get out of sight and then make big, big loops through canyons, basically running to get up ahead of them and try to get, in a position before they, got out where they could see you. And then, of course, you're playing the wind, too, and those canyons kind of are kicking the ding-ding when it comes to playing wind because it's constantly changing around.
Yeah,
fortunately for us, it was blowing 30 to 50 the whole time we were there, so it was a huge key to our success as we had, wind cover for smell and as well as
some sound cover.
Sound.
Yeah, for sure.
And it helps with movement cover too, because there's a lot of movement in the underbrush and all that,
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does for sure. Now I know, and I wanted to give credit where it's due. You were hunting with one of my good buddies as well, Scotti Campbell, at his place at Topo Texas Outfitters in the Panhandle. And like when you got there, Brian, I assume Scotti kind of had a game plan. Was it just like, let's get the glass out, or let's get to a high vantage point and then start glassing, or how did you guys start the hunt?
Yeah, that was it.
That was it.
Yeah, I got there Saturday around noon. It took a couple hours to get to him, and we anticipated, getting unpacked, getting settled where we were going to stay, shooting the bows a little bit, and starting hunting Sunday. And as soon as we pulled up, Scotti said, "Man, y'all are here in great time. Grab your crap. Let's go. Let's go hunt right now." And I thought, man, I am home. This is my kind of guy. So we literally did a parking lot change, like, NASCAR pit crew pit stop, and yanked out bows, got everything ready, threw on clothes, strapped on boots, took 2 shots at targets, jumped in the truck, and took off. And, it was an hour-and-a-half drive up to where we were going. And, most outfitters are not going to go do that. They're not going to drive that far to go hunt 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure. That's right.
But Scotti was ready to roll, so we got up there first day, got up high where we could glass, and literally the next ridge to the east of us, or northeast of us, there were sheep all over it. They were within, 800 yards of us, and fortunately, Wes, Scotty's son, spotted them before we kind of gave ourselves up, and so, we were all kind of discussing, what to do, and I said, man, look, we got an hour. I told Aaron, let's go. So we grabbed our bows and took off. And believe it or not, I ended up getting a shot off that day, and Aaron almost did too. So,
gosh dang, in the first evening.
First evening, yeah. But the bad thing is I pushed it real hard going down this hillside or mountainside. And, going down is almost worse than climbing. And I don't know, about right when I got to the bottom, my history. I've got some injury issues from a bad accident, years ago, and my left knee is always problematic, and I messed something up really bad, like the first drop we made, and but I just kind of like hobbled on one leg because I could see some sheep up the canyon, and I ended up getting up there, and they were in like a 20-foot deep, maybe 100-foot wide creek bed, dry creek bed, and there were 6 dead cottonwoods right up on the edge of the bank, so I had a little cover. So I belly crawled up, wind in my face, came up over the edge. The sheep were below me. Everything was great. I was waiting for them they were feeding into the wind, which was perfect. They were feeding to my left, and I was waiting for them to feed out to get a shot. They were between 20 and 30 yards. I couldn't believe how close I'd gotten right off the bat, but it was just that perfect scenario. It was pure luck that they were there and I could get there quickly. And anyway, long story short, I had one feed out in the open. I was about to shoot it, and then I noticed that the sheep behind it was a giant old ram. And I thought, man, I just, these things are too chill. Everything's good. I'm going to wait for that ram to feed out. And when I did, I was sitting there waiting. 30 seconds later, I heard something coming up the canyon. I couldn't figure out what it was, and I looked, and there was like 200 head of cattle running up the creek bed full speed like a stampede coming to me, and they ran the sheep out. Well, right when I got to my position, I ranged everything, and there was a trail going up the far bank of that washed out creek, and I ranged it. It was exactly 60 yards. So as soon as the cattle came stampeding up, the sheep started running. So I immediately turned my bow up to, I dialed my sight to 60 and said, hey, if they go up that side over there and they stop, at least I'll know exactly where they are.
Right.
If they stop anywhere else, I'm just not going to shoot, And the whole herd, there was about 30 of them, they literally went up that bank and stopped and looked back at me, and I was already drawn. As soon as they started running, I set my sight and drew, and I thought if they stop on that bank, I'm going to be ready. And I was watching one big ram, and I watched him go all the way up, and he stopped wide open. They looked back and saw me, and I thought, okay, they see me, they're going to react when I shoot. So I held my pin like below their chest. So I guess it's the whitetail guy in me. I always
for sure.
Drop,
it's just the natural instinct.
Yeah. And so I thought, man, these things are going to all, with that many eyes, they're going to freak when I shoot. And I shot, and literally not a single one of them batted an eye. They didn't flinch, they didn't do anything, and I shot right through the hair on that one, and they ran off. And come to find out, Aaron was trying to get around them and spooked that herd of cattle and ran the cattle up the draw at me and ran the sheep off. So once that was done, I looked up and I could see him walking out. And I came walking up there, and he had his head down. He's like, yeah, I kind of effed that up. I'm like, it's all right. They won. We're good.
No way.
Yeah, it was pretty fun, though. So it was a pretty exciting, first afternoon,
Yeah, it actually doesn't get much more exciting than that.
Yeah, so you want me to just kind of keep going through the progression?
Yeah, just let us have it.
All right, let you have it. Okay, all right. So so the next day we went back up to that place and got on sheep early. I laid back, and it was kind of sitting up high with Scotti and Aaron and John that works with Scotti. They made a move on some sheep, and Aaron got a couple of shots off, but didn't connect, and they all kind of ran up over this mountain. So we came back and sat down and was having lunch and all after that morning, and we were watching on the skyline, and we could see sheep starting to filter back into this canyon from where they had run earlier that morning, and they kept dropping off out of sight behind this little knoll. So we went up there and peeked over the knoll, Aaron and I did, and John that works for Scotti, and Scotti laid back to glass, and there were sheep there. There was maybe a dozen sheep already in this bowl feeding. And so by this time, my knee was completely shot. I'd already walked 3 or 4 miles that morning on one leg, basically hobbling. And, of course, they're all making fun of me. And
of course.
Yeah. And so I said, hey, I'm going to sit right here. I got the wind in my face. They act like they're wanting to come back down in this canyon. And if you guys want to make a big loop, go ahead. So they made a big loop, and Aaron actually got a shot off and hit one. And it was hit good, but it was hit too far back. And so we tracked it all the way till dark, and we could keep eyes on it, but we just couldn't ever get close enough for a follow-up. So it was going to get down to 8 degrees that night with like a negative something wind chill, and it was going to snow. And so we just pulled out of there. We came back the next morning, and we could not find that sheep. There was fresh snow everywhere. We just could not pick it up. And we looked until about 11:30, and all of us, even Wes, Scotty's son, there were 5 of us looking. We looked till 11:30 for that sheep. 2 of us put 8.5 miles on our boots, and Aaron was over 12. We finally came back to the spot where that we had last seen the sheep, and somehow or another, we just didn't see the sheep. It was real tucked in, but Aaron crossed some coyote tracks, and so he followed them and followed them straight to the sheep, but the sheep was still alive, and it ran up the canyon, and Aaron, basically we followed that sheep for another 2 miles and finally got in on it, and Aaron got another arrow and it killed it. So we ended up killing that sheep 24 hours after he had initially shot it, and we basically did not stop on that sheep after it was shot in daylight hours until we recovered it. So was an incredible track job. It was an incredible, effort by everybody. It was a shame, that the sheep, suffered like that. But it's part of bow hunting, and you've got to put in the effort to make it right. And, that's kind of what we did. So.
Yeah, for sure, you guys did. Amazing that Aaron kind of made the connection between the coyote tracks and getting back on that sheep, which is absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, I'm sure the coyotes could smell the wounded sheep, and they're probably going to check it out.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and we probably ran the coyotes out when they were trying to make a play on it, right, because we were there at daylight, and so it all just kind of worked out. We got real lucky, and anyway, we recovered that sheep, and that's the first one I've ever put my hands on. I've seen them over the years, hunting out in West Texas for mule deer, but that's the first one I ever put my hands on, and man, I was just
pretty neat,
blown away. Yeah, man, I mean, just they're so unique and they're so big. I didn't realize how big they were. They're built a lot like a mountain goat,
Yeah, they're real similar body-wise. It looks like they're, which I would assume they have to be. They got super thick kind of bones and legs, so they don't snap off, I would assume. Walking all those jagged rocks. I've seen them on some of the most strangest places, you would think to ever see an animal. And but man, you're right, Brian. They just look like they're extremely well built, and amazing how agile they even look for being the way they're built.
Well, that's a great term, agile, because when Aaron shot his sheep, that sheep came right by me and saw me turn and basically went off of a cliff and literally, just touched its hoof 3 times on going down the sheer face of a 40-50 foot drop, and it never checked up. I could not believe the agility of that big animal. It was just amazing to see. And then, of course, as we hunted throughout the week, we got to see a lot of that, and man, it was impressive. So we recovered that sheep. Spent the rest of the afternoon. Skinning that sheep out and processing it, and so the next day we went back up there again, and it looked like as much time as we'd spent in that big canyon, we had pushed them out. And you're talking about maybe a 10,000 acre ranch that we were hunting on.
That's big.
Yeah,
that's big to push something out of there.
Yeah, when you've got to cover so much ground. I think we just moved them, and there's so much rugged country everywhere that it was just easy for them to relocate. So Scotti told us, he said, "Look, guys, I've got some more places up here. We'll go hit." He said, "I have got a place that is almost 3 hours south of here, and we would have to go pack up, drive down there, and get a motel room down there and get set up to hunt this other property. But it is the most beautiful place you'll ever see." It was in the Paladura Canyon, which is just this gigantic canyon down south of Amarillo. And so,
and for people that don't know, let me interrupt 1 second, Brian. For people that don't know, it's the second largest canyon in the U.S. next to the Grand Canyon. So just, put that in perspective, it's got to be a pretty piece of ground you guys are hunting on.
Yeah, I did not know that, but now I do. So that's a great little tidbit there. But so we go down there and we get off on we're hunting the top rim of the canyon on this just ginormous piece of property. I don't know how many tens of thousands of acres this piece of property was, but it was the most rugged thing I'd ever seen. And I mean, there was no dropping off into the canyon. I mean, you could get to the edge of it and look down, but you were not getting down there. And so, if we would have killed a sheep that had gone down in there, we would have had to totally leave, go out, go around, 20, 30 miles, come in another way through another property, come up through the canyon, then hike in back to where we were. So we were trying to be very conscious of where we were going to hunt, so we didn't have a sheep that, got into a place that's going to be impossible to get to. So we hunted some areas that were, I don't know, I guess it would be maybe a mile or two from the rim, maybe a mile from the rim of the canyon. So we felt like, we had a good enough distance there that we wouldn't get in trouble.
Right. You'd get your animal out safely.
Yeah, you got to think about that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, for
we're
sure.
We're riding with the rancher, and we're seeing sheep everywhere. Now we're trying to figure out where we're seeing them. Are they accessible? How would we make a play on them? We're seeing mule deer everywhere, whitetails everywhere, hogs everywhere, and we're looking at Scotti going, yeah, you did not oversell this, you undersold it. I mean, this place is paired over with crickets. Yeah. So we were fired up, and so after that we had 3 more days, and it was game on, and we were into sheep every day, all day. I can't remember how many shots Aaron had, but he had a lot of shots. So he kind of went to one side of the ranch. I went to another, so we wouldn't mess each other up. And anyway, I had a lot of different opportunities on some decent sheep, decent-sized sheep. And I had told myself I was just going to shoot the first one I had an opportunity at. But when we got to that new place, man, some of the rams we were seeing were just like, they were amazing animals, and I really wanted to try to get an opportunity at one of those really big ones. And so I held out probably more than I should, but I just really wanted to have an opportunity at one of those big ones. And so we hunted 3 more days, and the last day we started on a herd of sheep and bumped them, and they ran, I don't know, about a mile. You can see a long way out there. And John that I was hunting with said, hey, man, he could see it in my eyes. I mean, I was hurt. And I've been hobbling around these canyons and mountains, for 5 days now. And so anyway, he said, look, you just walk straight up this ridge about a mile and it'll hit the road. We were about 3 miles from the truck, and we had to go through a canyon. He said, I'll go back through there, get the truck, I'll drive around and pick you up there on that, and that'll be a lot easier walk for you. And I said, man, I appreciate it. So I started that, and I was blasting to where those sheep went, and they stopped. And they were about a mile away, and they got in these thick cedars, and I thought, man, that is the spot to get one if I'm going to do it. It was the very last day. John's already walked. He's gone. I'm like, crap, I'm going. So I hobbled my butt over there. Well, I didn't realize there was a giant canyon between me and them. I couldn't see. So I had to drop down in one, hand crawl out of another one. I finally got into the sheep, and they were all around me. There was probably about 80 to 100 in this group. And
how close are you now, Brian, to them?
Oh, I mean, I've got some at 30 yards. I've got some at 100, but I can't get close to any of the real big ones. And so, and finally I bump them, and they push out again, but they didn't really know what I was. They just got nervous, and they pushed out on this big rim on this knife edge. And so I eased out there, and I got within 200 yards from them, and it was like on the face of the moon. There was no cover, no nothing. And I laid down out there behind a little brush pile, and I glassed them from, this is probably like 10 o'clock. I sat there and watched them feed until, I guess about 1:30, and it was blowing 30 to 40, 11 degrees. I mean, I was an icicle. And
freezing.
And so finally they feed out, and they feed around the point of that knife edge, ridge. And I'm thinking, man, well, they've got to come up the other side, and the wind's perfect. It's in my face coming up the other way. They're going to be coming downwind. At this point, they're like a mile away. And I said, crap, I got to go. So I got to hobble down to the left side of that ridge and ran up. And I stopped about, I don't know, maybe a half mile from them in glass, and I couldn't see them, so they were still on the back side of that ridge. But I noticed that where they were coming, off to my left was a big canyon and a big washout that came way up on the side of the ridge, and it was going to basically be a pinch point to where they would have to go around that. or it was a 200-foot drop, so they were definitely going to go around that. So I took off again, hobbled down there, and by the time I got to that place, I basically got there at the same time they did. And I was right. They were having to go around it. And so I crawled through the cedars, got on the edge of that washout, and crawled up as far as I could, and finally ran out of cover. And the sheep were all feeding by me at about 60 yards, that's just way out of my range normally as far as taking a shot on an animal. And so I just kept watching, and I kept talking myself into it because I'd been taking 60-yard shots all week on, targets, jackrabbits, all that kind of stuff,
Right.
I felt really good. So I just waited, and the very last sheep to come through was this just giant old ram. I'd been watching him, and he was the last one. And he was dead on the trail, dead at 60. I knew that they did not react at the sound of a bow the way, from our very first day. So I knew that they weren't really jump the string. The thing's totally relaxed. Wind's blowing, a lot of cover. So it's blowing right in my face. So anyway, I went ahead and took the shot and got him. I hit him back and hit him, I guess, back lung, front of liver. And he ran about 30, 40 yards and laid down. And, I mean, that was it. And at this point, I'm on top of this mountain, and I'm looking back, and I can see this tower where we had parked the truck that morning at daylight. And I realized how screwed I was and how far away I was and how many canyons that I would have to cross. And I also realized that nobody knew where I was.
Right, which is not a comfortable feeling either.
No, it was a bad deal, man. So I went over there and checked the sheep out and was just kind of overwhelmed because I had struggled so much with my knee the whole week. And anyway, it turns out I had torn my meniscus or something, and it'd been damaged before, but it finally, crapped out on me. But so anyway, I hobbled up to the top of this ridge, and back to my south, I could see a windmill. And so I walked to that windmill, and when I got to that windmill, I actually got cell service, which we hadn't had cell service anywhere.
Wow.
I got cell service. My phone starts vibrating. Everybody's wanting to know where I am. Scotti and Aaron are back. Everybody's looking for me. And so anyway, I finally texted and says, here's where I am. Come to this windmill. Scotti knew where it was, of course, but I mean, it was like a 45-minute drive for them to get around to me.
No kidding.
Yeah. So anyway, they came around and got to the windmill, and then we went up there and packed the sheep out, and that was just a great wrap up to the last day. It was tough on me just because of my physical limitations, but just on that trip. But those animals are as tough a critter as I've hunted anywhere on the planet to get a bow shot on, as far as a free range aoudad. I mean, they've got their act together, man. It is very impressive.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I mean, it is just on my list of which I don't really want to say I have a list of animals I want to or need to kill, but it's way up there on just a pedestal, so to speak, of just being a hardcore bow hunter. I just think it's so worthy of like that challenge, and everybody I've ever talked to has just had hunts similar to yours, Brian, where it's demanding, and I think that it just makes a unique adventure and a really good time if you're into just doing what you did, grinding it out with one leg for 5 days.
Yeah, Aaron kept making fun of me. He said I looked like I'd been shot in the leg with rock salt, like trying to rob a chicken coop or something, because I was just hopping around on one leg. But that animal is super unique, and it's just, I don't know, it's always been I've been fascinated with them, and and that's probably the only sheep of any kind that I'll ever hunt. I have just never struggled with the decision on whether to spend the big bucks to go after the sheep.
Yeah, I mean, that is one cool thing about those sheep, right? It's, so to speak, affordable, and it's in very hard, rugged country, so you're getting kind of the best of both worlds, if you ask me. And it's one of the only sheep that, obviously, in North America here that looks the way it looks. You know, it's got those big, beautiful eyes, a huge mane, and the way those horns wrap underneath the chin, and you know, and some get absolutely huge, like the one Brian got. Is what, Brian? It's north of 30 inches, right?
Yeah, it was big, and yeah, they're just amazing. But I don't know, man. I just, you know, I felt like there were times in my life, and now as I'm getting later on in age and more comfortable, I mean, I felt like I could afford to go do some of these, you know, bigger sheep hunts, maybe a doll or something like that. But I've just, I don't know. I've never felt comfortable taking that type of money and spending it on something just for me. I don't know. It just feels really selfish, and I
understand that completely. Yeah.
I just feel like I'd be taking away opportunities from my family to do things, and my family wouldn't care. My boys, my wife, they'd be all for it, and you know, it probably wouldn't change our life, you know, making that kind of expenditure on one hunt, but I just never could bring myself to do it. And you know, maybe when I get a little older, and you know, my kids they have their own families, and I feel like, you know, everybody's in good shape, you know, it may be a point in my life where I'll say, okay, I'll go spend, you know, $20,000 or $30,000 on something for me. But I don't know, man. I can't bring myself to do it right now, you know.
No, I understand. I feel like, for one, I agree with you 100% on the reasons why not to, and I also kind of think too that I have such a good time hunting deer, mule deer, and a chance to hunt an Aoudad, and a couple other things that are relatively way down the price scale that I just think can keep me busy and keep me happy, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I like to do a lot of hunts, as you can tell.
Yeah.
You know, we don't let the moss grow under our feet very often, and you know, I just felt like if I do a big hunt like that, you know, it's going to limit me from doing six other hunts I want to go do, you know.
Yeah.
And I you know, I just want to be responsible. So having those sheep available, you know, in that proximity of the country, and you know, kind of that price point where they're not super expensive, you know, it's I don't know. I'll tell you right now, I'm afraid that it's going to be something I'm going to have to go do every February or March. I loved it that much.
Yeah, that's super cool. I hope next year, Brian, I'll be going with you if you decide to go, because I already told Scotti I've been threatening for years to come down and do an Aoudad with him, so I'm pretty close to doing it either this year or next year. But if you're planning on going again, I'm coming with you.
Absolutely. I'll tell you a funny story about how this whole thing came together. So you and Scotti are friends. I've never talked to Scotti, never met him, anything. And I'd say, I don't know, maybe the middle of February, he called looking for some advice and some guidance and some help on arrows, on what to choose for arrows for himself. And so we got to talking, and then I put two and two together, because he told me who he was, but I didn't put two and two together. And then he mentioned you, and then I said, oh, I actually know who I'm talking to now.
Right.
I didn't.
That's
it
funny.
Took me a while, you know. We were just talking 20 minutes, and just the nicest human on the planet. So we're just talking away, and he said, man, you know, I've got some decent mule deer out here, and I've got some really good whitetails, and I'd love to have you and your buddy Aaron come out here and hunt deer with me. I would just love it. And I said, man, I appreciate it, but when it comes to deer season, basically from September through February, I'm pretty much like
you're
maxed out on
booked.
what I
can
do. Huh?
I said you're booked usually.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know, I go do a hunt, come back, work, dig myself out of a work hole, and then get ahead a little bit, go hunt again. And so, you know, I'm constantly going that whole time. I just couldn't really squeeze anything else in. And then it hit me where he was, and I said, Scotti, do you have any Aoudad? And he goes, heck yeah. And I said, do you like have a huntable amount of aoudad? And he said, heck yeah. And I said, man, he started kind of telling me about the hunting and how they come out of the canyons at night and go up onto these, wheat fields. And so I'm sitting there talking to him. And so I grab my other phone and I pull my phone up and I look up Amarillo, Texas. I look at the weather and I look at the forecast for like the next 10 days, and like 8 days out was 20-degree low, 50-degree high for 5 days. I was thinking, man, they're going to be hitting that wheat hard with that cold weather. And I said, Scotti, what are you doing next week? In about a week and a half. And he said, well, maybe we're going to be sheep hunting. And I said, can you pull it off? He goes, I can pull it off. And so literally on that same phone call, never met him, anything. An hour later, I'm calling Aaron, and I said, you got to pick me up in Amarillo, because he's only 6 hours from Amarillo where he lives in Colorado. I said, you got to pick me up in Amarillo. I'm fixing to book a flight. Here's when we're going. And he's like, oh, man, I've got this to do, and I've got that to do. And I told him what the deal was, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to cancel all that. I'll pick you up. So anyway, I literally booked a flight right then, and then 8 or 9 days later, we met Scotti for the first time, and that afternoon we were shooting at sheep. I mean, that's how quick it went together. And so
that's cool.
Yeah, and Scotty's one of the finest humans I've ever met.
Yeah, I second that for sure. He's one of the greatest. And I'll be down with him in October for some mule deer hunting. Me and him are going to hunt together for a week, and he's just one of those guys that I think, Brian, every year you kind of look forward just to spending time with somebody, and Scotty's that guy, man. I always look forward to spending time with and hanging out with him and his family.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And John that works with him, just salt of the earth, his son Wes. I mean, they're just the greatest folks ever, and man, they were so accommodating. There's a lot of places I've hunted where the guide really micromanages you, and Scotti would get us in on the sheet and say, all right, there we were, we're here. This is as far as we're going to go, and he would just turn Aaron and I loose and let us do our thing. And he's like, man, I'm not going to sit there and walk right behind you and add another person, add more movement, try to tell you guys what to do. You're bow hunting. It's a tough deal as it is. So y'all just go do your thing. And that's right. Guide.
Yeah, that is.
The perfect guide will limit his instruction and his involvement based on his assessment of his hunter's skill set. Because some guys need more help and some guys don't. And that's a great guide. He really does a good job of evaluating who he's with and what he needs to do. And golly, man, there's not a lazy bone in that guy's body. He'll walk you to death.
Yeah, he's a machine, that guy. So he is something. Yeah, and it's a wonderful, just a beautiful, beautiful part of the country that a lot of people just don't see, and it's what Brian described in this podcast, it really is just an ultimate bow hunting adventure. It's beautiful ground, it's hard hunting, and it's just a piece of the earth that you just don't even think exists until you see it.
That's right. Yeah, it's amazing. I encourage anybody that's interested in doing that to go do it, because it'll be one of those hunts you'll never forget. And it's right up there at the top of my list for sure. And I am 100% going to be doing it again one day.
Yeah, for sure. Well, super excited to have you on today, Brian, and talk about this hunt. I couldn't wait to hear about it myself and share it with everybody on the podcast side, and super happy that you accomplished an awesome goal, and super excited as well that things are going good with Day 6 gear, and excited to see these broadheads come out soon.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll have to run them through some animals here this fall.
No, absolutely. So, as everybody knows, you can find Brian, Instagram, Day 6 gear. Brian said the new broadheads will be out in May. Was that right, Brian?
Yep, they'll be out in May.
Yep. And obviously the best hunting arrows on earth are already available, so make sure you check out the HD Series arrows. And as well, make sure to stop over at Topo Texas Instagram page. Give those guys a like as well. And Brian, can't wait to hear the next hunting story from you, man.
Sounds good, buddy. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks for your time again. And we'll see everybody next week.